All right, what's up guys? Here's part 2 of the round 2 prep video. This is just me working on the brakes. I'm finally getting to them. I had to do another few things the last couple days. I meant to do it the day after I filmed the first video, but that's neither here nor there. As you can see, the car's on the lift behind me. I've already pulled off one wheel, and we will get to it and show what this involves. Basically, I'm just gonna have to pull off both the handbrake caliper and the foot brake caliper, and then the rotor, swap a new rotor on, and then compress the pistons of the calipers slightly because the thickness of the rotor and the new pads is going to be larger, and they're going to be pushed out quite a bit to take up the space of all the material missing right now. So to do that safely, I'm going to use some channel lock pliers and gently push the pistons back in while opening the bleeder valve, and that will just let a little bit of fluid out without introducing any air into the system, so I hopefully won't have to rebleed the brakes in either system. So let's get started. All right, so here I have the rear setup. This is obviously my Willwood handbrake caliper. I use a kit from massivebrakes.com. A gentleman out of Canada, I believe, produces that, and I've run it for years and really love it. It's a good kit. Problem is you have to pull the hub and everything out because it installs behind all of that, and typically when you pull the hub on these cars, you destroy the wheel bearing. So that's kind of a pain. Just plan to put fresh wheel bearings in when you do the secondary caliper, and I did at the time. So they're probably, let's see, is this loose? No, it's not. They're probably still pretty good, but I should check the wheel bearings at some point. This is an adapter spacer. It's an 1.25 inches, so 32 millimeters. It goes from 5x120 bolt pattern to 5x114, which is typical S chassis and 350Z pattern. So I can run my XXRs here. Those are actually dual drill, but I needed a spacer anyway, so I run them with adapters up front as well. Getting back down here, I have to grab the light here in a second. If you guys don't know, I have a big case diff in this car out of a 7 Series. There's a bracket you can weld onto your subframe right here that essentially eliminates the front bushing, and you basically won't ever break front diff bolts anymore when you're launching and stuff. So let me get a light and then we will begin taking out these calipers. All right, I got a light. So now we have to remove a couple of things here. This is a floating caliper, so it floats side to side. It's not fixed, and it has slide pins right here. So you have to basically remove these with Allen bolts, and then you can pull the caliper off the bracket, and then we pull the bracket off with these bolts, which I think are 16s. And then this bracket will get out of the way so we can pull the rotor all the way off. So I'll go ahead and do that. All right, so one more thing here we have to take off before we can pull this caliper is this clip. And this is called an anti-rattle clip, more affectionately known as a bitch clip. There's several bitch clips on BMW. This is just one of them. This is a brake bitch clip. There's also a shifter bitch clip. But basically we have to pry this out. It's just got a little tension on there to basically keep the caliper and everything seated on this side. Since it's only bolted through some pins on the back side, it could technically like torque around a little bit, I guess. So to do that, you kind of just pry up under here like that. See, I just got one edge out, and now I can work that edge out. So got that. And then now I have to remove those Allens that I was talking about to get the caliper off, and then we'll take the caliper bracket off, and then we will start removing this caliper, then get the rotor off. And as you can see, this rotor is horrific. If this were a street car, I would be shaming myself right now, because this is not acceptable. You should never run a rotor that low. I mean, that's just crazy. Let's see if you can get a profile shot. Look at that. That is insane. So yeah, they're completely shot. Oh, I guess you can see the pads now too. So there's the pad. Oh, it's still got a little bit in there. It's actually probably has about 20–30% life. But I know that the foot brake pad is basically completely gone. That's pretty much just a backing plate there. There may be a little bit of material on the front, but it does not make good noises when I'm just pulling around in the parking lot and hit the foot brake. So good thing we've got some new parts for that. Get right over here. So I've got another set of Willwood Polymatrix A's for the handbrake, and as you can see, even brand new, they're not super thick. So the ones that are in there may not even really need to be replaced yet. It may just be the foot brake that's so bad. And then in there I've got rotors, and some cheapo brake pads. I'll unbox that and show you guys in a second. Alrighty, we've got our parts unboxed here. So these are, the brand is OP Parts. This is just a good cheapo brand for like brake parts. They make a bunch of aftermarket stuff, or I guess you would call this an aftermarket product. It's not made by a manufacturer, like a OE manufacturer. So they make really good brake rotors and stuff that are economical. And since we're drifting, we're not really like overheating the brakes a ton. I'm just using cheapo pads. I think those were like 30 bucks for the rear set for an M3. And the rotors, I think, were like 30 or 40 each. So not too bad. And obviously just a plain, not drilled or slotted or anything. No reason to give it extra spots to try to crack or anything. We just want a brand new thick rotor that's not all screwed up like mine. So that'll work. All right, so we got the calipers off on one side. Now we have to remove the set screw for the rotor and pull the rotor off. The calipers were quite a bitch to get off, actually. The secondary caliper for the e-brake is held on by Allen screws, which I think they're still on over here. Yeah. I don't know if you can see in here, let's see. So there's one that goes like right there, and it's an 8mm Allen. You can't get a socket on it because of the clearance to the trailing arm. So you have to use an actual regular Allen, and then the other one is way up there. Let's see, it's basically like on top here, kind of near the upper control arm. But basically you can get like 1/8 of a turn on them at a time, and it just takes forever to remove. Finally got it off the other side, had to pull the shocks loose as well to get access to the slider pins for the main caliper, those Allen bolts I was talking about earlier, and then pulled off the brackets with the 15mm. That light's in the way, sorry. So now we'll remove these Allens, pull the rotors off, brake clean the new rotors to get all the, I guess sealant, or I can't remember. They have some kind of coating on them that you essentially have to get off before you install them. So you just brake clean them off and wipe them down. So we'll do that, put the new rotors on that don't have this massive lip, and replace the brake pads and be good to go. And actually the Wilwood pads, turns out, are not nearly as bad as I thought. The main brake pads, the foot brake pads, are the ones that are terrible. Here are the Wilwoods right here. You can see. So they're fairly thin. I mean, they're wearing kind of evenly, sort of. One's a little bit more worn than the other one, but they have a decent thickness compared to the backing plate. And I would say maybe the same thickness as the backing plate. And if we go look at the brand new ones, you can compare those. Let's see, where are they? Here. So a brand new one is probably double the thickness of the backing plate. So they're more than 50% gone. Maybe they have about 40% life left, or a little bit less. But given these are really high performance pads and they're sort of expensive, I don't think I'm gonna change them out just yet. I think I'm actually just gonna replace the brake rotors and then the foot brake pads. And given that these calipers are actually top loaders, it'll be easy to change later on because they're a fixed caliper, and a top loader means you just remove these little pins here, and then the brake pads actually come out the top, and you can slide new ones in without removing the pad and the bracketing and all this stuff like a factory BMW sliding caliper is. So that'll be a project for another day. We'll just leave those pads as is. New rotors, new foot brake pads going in now. Alrighty, so we got the new rotor on. Probably gonna have to brake clean it again because I got it pretty dirty since my hands are dirty. Hung the Wilwood caliper back on its brackets with those super annoying Allen bolts, which are right here, and an upper one up there. And pulled the pads out just so that the caliper and everything would clear the thicker rotor. Since the other rotor was super thin, the pistons are pushed out quite a bit. So we're gonna have to open these bleeders. There's one per piston, and these are 4-piston calipers, so we have 4 bleeders to open, 4 pistons to push back. We'll push those back and slide the pads back in. We're gonna go ahead and reuse those since there's like 40% life on them, and I could probably get another few seasons out of them without replacing them. Next step is to put back the factory BMW caliper bracket and the factory caliper, but with new pads. So we'll have to also push in that piston because it's extended quite a bit for the completely worn out pads. And hook the shock back up, and then this side should be done. One other quick thing I wanted to mention when you're doing brake work and stuff like this that you don't do very often. This bottle's super dirty, but you can't see it. This is Permatex Anti-Seize. Come on, focus a little better, there we go. And putting this on rusty bolts and stuff is a great idea because it essentially prevents it from galling and like chemically seizing over time due to moisture and all sorts of other stuff going on. And it allows you to break it loose easier years later. So put this on your bolts for suspension stuff and make your life easier. All right, finishing up the right side. Got the left side pretty much buttoned up. Let's see, so we got the new rotor, reuse the Willwood prep pads because they have like 30–40% left. It's probably good for another season or two, honestly, given how long they've lasted me so far. Brand new pads in the foot brake and new rotor, so that'll actually be good. The other ones are basically down to the backing plates. I guess I can show you guys a little more back here. There's nothing secret or anything. It's still separate spring. It's an 8K spring. It's kind of long because the car, I have it set at a high ride height for more grip. Then I have super long BCs back here, just BRs, but they are spec'd for like long travel and stuff. 210 diff with the bracket I was talking about. And then I have stock 95 M3 axles, the stock bars and everything. They're just the output flanges or whatever you want to call them, right out of the diff, are a little bit larger for the 210, but the M3 axles fit right in. So I've actually never broken an axle. Now I'm probably going to break one because I'm saying that. As you can see, when the shock's disconnected, the spring just like falls out. Whoops, just dropped my caliper. Dope. All right, so next step on this side is remove the set screw, 6mm Allen, pull the rotor off, put the new one on, brake clean it, or brake clean it first, then put it on. And then I will be compressing the foot brake caliper, put the piston back in because it's way the hell out if you look at it. Since the pads were so shot, that's how far out it was, and that's ridiculous. So I will compress that with some, compress it with some, what do you call them? Channel locks? Yeah, channel locks. And open the bleeder, get the piston back all the way so that it'll fit over the thicker new rotor and new pads. I'll do that right now. All right, so this side's totally back together. Basically, I just have to loosen the bleeder, compress the piston in, then I can fit the pads. And on the Willwoods, they have a bleeder on both the bottom and top side, depending on how you mount it. You can just use either one. It's common chamber. We found out there are 4 piston, but 1 common chamber per side. So just opening this bleeder and then pushing in the 2 outer pistons with like a screwdriver. We just kind of pry it on against the rotor to slide the pads in. These are top loader calipers, which means that the pad literally just goes in from the top, versus these you have to remove the caliper completely and put the pad within the bracket and then put the caliper on top of it. So that's actually really nice. I forgot to film reinstalling the anti-rattle clip, which is really easy. It just kind of slides in here and goes through these little rails. Get a light here. So you can see how that works. They just go in and basically the pads just are held on by those rails, and that's it. So I'll film putting that on the other side, I guess, even though that's not super important. And this side's pretty much done. Keep doing that. Okay, now it's time to put back on the factory caliper bracket. The new rotor's on, set screws installed. The bracket goes on, I guess like this. And then the pad, one pad sits on the outside of the rotor and one pad sits within the caliper. So I'm gonna anti-seize these bolts up real quick, just so that next time I take them off, I will be able to. There's actually a tiny bit of anti-seize. Let's see if it'll focus on that, probably not. There's a tiny bit on there from last time, but I'm gonna put more on, more on, and put that caliper on. All right, so I got the bracket back on. They're just two 15mm bolts, anti-seize those. The outer pad is the one that doesn't have the little clips in it, I guess. So this is the inner pad on an E36, and those little clips there just lock into the middle of the piston. But as I was saying earlier, since the pads were so low, the piston is pushed all the way out here. So we need to open the bleeder and push that all the way back in to make space for the thicker new rotor and the brand new pad, so that it'll clear and be able to fit over there. So we'll do that real quick and then slap this caliper on. All right, so got the piston recessed all the way back into the caliper. We actually made a mistake by taking this side completely apart while pushing the pistons in on the other side, because it forced brake fluid over to this side and actually pushed the piston out slightly too far. So it was kind of cockeyed, and we had to get it lined back up so that it would go back in. But got that done. Now we can clip in this pad, which just goes in here like this. Let's see, better not to go upside down. Come on, baby. Like that. And then just put this little thing over here. Okay, so now we've got the inner pad clipped in there, outer pad's on the bracket. The piston should be sufficiently pushed back so we can fit this whole thing over. Yep. It's a little tight there. Come on. Got it. Just barely. Okay, so now the caliper's back on. We just have to reinstall the slide pins, which are those Allens that go on the back side right here, those two. And then the anti-rattle clip on the front, which is right here. So we'll do that now. All right. Now we've got the slide pins lubed up and reinstalled, the caliper's back on. Now we can use the pole jack to lift the hub and everything back up so I can reattach the shock. Had to take the shock loose just to access the pins because it's kind of in line and you can't clear a socket basically. So we'll just crank this thing back up.
You want me to go ahead and put the shock spring in place?
Oh yeah, please. That would be important.
Yes.
That way, yep.
Alrighty.
And where's our shock bolt? There it is. Well, line it up, line it up. Here we go. A little bit higher. Yeah. Come on, baby. See my custom washer set up here? This is actually not a factory E36 shock bolt. These hubs have been drilled and tapped for 3/4 inch bolts, so these are 19s. And factory they're 18s, but I'm an idiot and over torqued one of my hubs like years ago, and it pulled threads, so we had to have it drilled and tapped at the machine shop, and now I have to drill out my rear shock bushings every time I get new rear shocks because they're all designed for a slightly smaller bolt, and it's a huge pain in the ass because I'm a moron. But they're 19s now, so that's that. Okay, shock's bolted back up, caliper's on. Now we have to deal with the Willwood, pushing these pistons all the way back in so we can clear the pads over the new rotor. And I'm going to put the bitch clip back on, the anti-rattle clip. So that just goes on like this. Just push it on. Oh, I missed it. Oh, it's so easy. Does it wrong. should be, that's that. Cool. All right, now on to the Willwood. All right, we got the Willwood remounted on its bracket. We still have to push the pistons in just slightly so that we can fit the pads back down in there since the rotor's a little bit thicker now. So to do that, we're going to open this bleeder, which is a tiny little 1/4 inch. And I've got a rag here to catch the fluid because you can't really even fit a hose on the end of that with the wrench in place. So we're just gonna cover it, and my dad's gonna pry with the screwdrivers right here, and we'll go ahead and do that. You can just do it now.
Do the outside ones first.
Yep, I'm on the top bleeder, just tell me when.
We're ready.
Way easier with 2 people. Okay.
A little more if you can get it up a little more.
Okay. Can't really see in there what we're doing, but he basically is just prying the piston back in so that we have space for the pad. And once he stops prying, I close the bleeder so we don't introduce too much air.
You know, we still need a little more room. It's not really bleeding that much.
Okay. Well,
There we go.
Fluid's definitely coming out.
Yeah.
What do I hear? Air pressure? Is my tire leaking when you're standing on it? I think it is.
Could be.
Maybe because it only has 10 psi in it.
Well, no.
Is this far enough, or do we need to close this?
Okay, go ahead and close
It's
it.
been open a while.
Yeah, we need a tougher screwdriver. Those are flexing too much
Okay.
to allow me to pull them completely out.
My dad was standing on the tire just now.
I think I was probably standing on the...
Oh, on the valve stem?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. I was like, man, are you burping the sidewall with your weight? That's crazy.
Hey, fat.
No, I wasn't calling you fat. All right, we got some slightly bigger screwdrivers because those were flexing a little bit too much. So now we have a stiffer one. You ready?
Yep.
Open the bleeder. We need like elevator music during the boring times.
That's it.
Okay.
Close it up. Okay.
Sure. Come on, baby. Stuck. Make sure I got it all the way closed. Yep. Okay, that side's done. So now we can slip in the outer pad, which I guess we get to choose which is which right now because I don't remember. One of them had a weird lip on it. On the top edge.
I scraped it off.
Okay.
They're very similar to the same height. I think the outer pad may be slightly thicker because the caliper is oriented just ever so slightly to the inside.
Gotcha.
So you wear that one a little bit more.
Perfect. So he's just sliding that down in there, and there's really nothing that holds it until we put that rattle clip in. That's the 2 rails that go through. Are you able to get the other side in, or
No,
we're
we're
gonna
gonna-
have to pry on it? Okay, so now we have to switch to the other bleeder, this chamber. Let's see if I can get a view up in here. Come on, baby. That's not good.
You have to break it loose and then get it
Yeah,
in
I think I have to do that.
Yeah, I don't think it'll leak in that first little bit.
All right, ready?
Okay, ready to go.
Go for it. Just prying against the rotor and onto the front edge of the piston.
Okay,
Just gently.
close it.
Okay. good. See if the other pad fits now.
Should slide right in. Yep.
Sweet. All right, now we get a better look with the light here and everything going on. So the pads are back in. Now we just need to put the rattle clip in, or anti-rattle clip rather. Let's see, this will be a trick. Where is it? There it is. So it goes in these holes, this, and then the center has to be bent up over that. Come on, baby. It's gonna be really hard to do with one hand. I'm gonna try. There we go. All right. And it actually just went right in through the first pad. You can see that's the holes in the pad there. That's where that has to line up. So you kind of just get that square, get this side in, okay. And then it has to get through the caliper. You also need to lift the centerpiece because that kind of gets hung up on the pads. Come on. There we go. All right, all the way over. That's it. And then there's a little set screw here to prevent this from backing out, which is right here, this little Allen guy. Reinstall that. And that basically just prevents that from possibly coming out and you losing your pads. So that's pretty much it. I'm gonna brake clean off the rotor again because we got a little bit dirty just with dirty hands and stuff. Everything's back together, shocks on, anti-rattle clip here. We've got the new pads, new rotor, old. We're reusing the Willwoods for now. I'm gonna probably change them out at the end of the season or something, but they'll definitely go the whole year, maybe even next year, without being changed. So, and as you can see, I run basically no spring preload. The shock is set right now, and with no weight on the car, spring moves around that much. So, I guess that's pretty much it. Alrighty, brake job's done now. I just need to put the adapter spacers back on. That goes from 5x120 to 5x114, and then put the wheel back on, and we'll be good to go. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. That feels like it was the longest brake install in the world. This may come out to like 30 or 40 minutes for a really simple procedure, but you got to poke around with me on my car a little bit and take a look at what's in there, what's involved with the dual caliper setup. Sometimes it's easier to just go inline. I know Chelsea actually posted about running an inline setup on the RTR Mustangs this year, which I thought was really interesting. So that's the crap I have to deal with to change brake pads, I guess, or rotors rather. Stay tuned next time. I'll probably try to create some more of these videos. I don't really have much to do on the car right now, but we'll do kind of like round recaps, and I'll try to shoot something a little bit more often. So give me feedback, give me positive or negative. I'd like to improve. I'm gonna try to get a GoPro like either chest strap or head strap or something ridiculous so that I can do a long continuous shot, because I know these are just sporadic little clips that I've just basically thrown together, and they're a bunch of little clips. So I'd rather have a long continuous video for you guys. Unfortunately, you'll also see like all the mistakes I make, and it'll be way more clumsy looking, but I'm clumsy enough, so whatever. Stay tuned next time, and thanks for watching. See ya.